All right, hey everyone. So I am here once again with Ami to talk about the third installment in Samuel Beckett's Trilogy, which is called The Unnamable. So to start with, Ami, will you just tell me your initial impressions?
It was really hard. I wasn't able to read it in a book form. I had to audiobook it because I would just get lost if I tried to read it. I would just either my mind would wander or I would just not understand what I'm reading. And I think that's a pretty unusual sort of book to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely in the past, with tough books like this, found audiobooks, an audiobook paired with still looking at the words, still sort of reading along, to be a good way of getting through it. It's how I got through the last chapter of James Joyce's Ulysses, which is also really tough to read because it's all one unbroken sentence with no punctuation and so on. So I feel like I had a similar experience. I did not have to turn to an audiobook. I was able to push myself through it, but I very much related to what you said about finding your mind wandering and like not being able to follow the thread of what he's saying. And I found myself feeling a weird paradox with this book. So on the one hand, I found it hard to read it for long stretches. I found I had to read it in small chunks. On the other hand, I kept feeling, as I was reading it, with the way that it's written, I kept feeling like the ideal way to read it actually is in one sitting.
Yeah.
I felt like the ideal way to read it is to wake up at like 5 a.m, start reading, and just read all the way to the end, all the way through. Because it's spoken as one long internal monologue, you know?
I agree with that, and I think probably why that's the ideal way to do it is because I think some people, maybe myself included, would lose their minds in that experience. It's such a consuming monologue. It just feels like it scrambles my brain.
Yeah. No, and I didn't have very much planned for this, but one thing I did think would be a good idea for us is just to read out the opening of the book, because it gives a good sample of...
the opening is actually incredible.
No, it's cool.
Totally,
so I'll read the first page, which in my edition at least is all the first paragraph.
Yep.
And another thing that's notable about this book is that I counted, there were only 17 paragraphs in this 110 or so page book. And one of the paragraphs goes for, I think, like 80 pages. So, so here's the opening of The Unnamable to give a sample to viewers about what reading this is like. Where now? Who now? When now? Unquestioning. I. Say I. Unbelieving. Questions, hypotheses, call them that. Keep going, going on. Call that going, call that on. Can it be that one day, off it goes on, that one day I simply stayed in where? Instead of going out in the old way, out to spend day and night as far away as possible, it wasn't far. Perhaps that is how it began. You think you are simply resting, the better to act when the time comes, or for no reason, and you soon find yourself powerless ever to do anything again. No matter how it happened, say it, not knowing what. Perhaps I simply assented at last to an old thing, but I did nothing. I seemed to speak, it is not I, about me, it is not about me. These few general remarks to begin with. Okay, so I'll stop there. Maybe I won't read the whole first page, but that's a good sample of what reading this book is like. It's unrelenting. Is the word that the adjective that came to mind for me. It's just unrelenting, because it's that for 120 pages. And the thing I think was tough for me, I was looking over my notes earlier today. What was really tough was the fact that it is unrelenting, that it's idea after idea after idea, but the ideas seem so trivial. And yet he keeps going on and on and on about them and bringing up new things, you know? And I feel like that was part of what made it so unrelenting, that he's insisting on talking and talking and talking. It seems about nothing, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's like, there's like a reductio ad absurdum here of language. It's just like, here's the analogy that came to mind. Our world is made of language. Like everything that we see has a label to it, and language is how we sort of imagine the future in language and assess our reality. And so in this analogy, in this metaphor, like it's like language sort of is like our screen of existence. And through these 3 novels in the trilogy, Malloy, Malone Dies, and The Unnamable, like there's less and less to hold on to. There's less and less like that makes sense on that screen. So but in the first book, Malloy, there's a plot and there's trying to get somewhere, but there's like some confusion about the world. And then Malone Dies, there's like one person just dying who sort of retreats into his memory. But in The Unnamable, it's like static on the screen. It's like just language with nothing being presented. It's just language. And it's like all the language wants to hold on to something. It wants to hold on to a character or a story or something that like and create something. And it's like there's just nothing there. It's just language.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I guess the paradox is that I think Beckett achieves that really well, of displaying for us what it seems like language would be without a subject, basically.
Right.
And yet that's also what makes this book the most impenetrable of the 3.
Yeah.
Because it so what the way that it manifested for me was like last time when we talked about Malone Dies, we had these long passages that we read out that were so beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And we don't really get that so much in The Unnamable, because the language doesn't have a subject really. It's just words, and there are some striking turns of phrases, right? I have some quotes that I might read that were really arresting passages, but they're always so much more fleeting than in Malone Dies,
It's an unembodied voice, which is so interesting, right? Because there is, if you want to ask yourself, like, what is he talking about over these 100 so pages? Like, he's sort of talking about, like, what am I? Mm-hmm. And the answer is he's like a disembodied consciousness or voice, you know what I'm saying? So, like, he's like, he does these whole, do I have ears? Do I have a mouth? Do I have, and he'll say I do, or he'll say I don't, and he'll just rest in this, like, not knowing, and, like, and that's one of the things that his mind is doing, but it's just that voice of consciousness without the body around it.
Yeah. I know. So I don't know. I do have some quotes.
Let's do it. I love the quotes. I think quotes are the best way to talk about this book.
Yeah.
I love the part when he's talking about Malone, and this is also in the opening. It's like shortly after what you read, and how like Malone passes before him. I don't know if you remember this. So it's and he's trying to make sense of that, like who's revolving around who, and and it just touches on the fact that like he's a complete unreliable narrator. He doesn't know anything. He's like trying to make sense of something, but it's just trying to like situate yourself, and it's like a totally absurd, impossible task. Malone is there. Of his mortal liveliness, little trace remains. He passes before me at doubtless regular intervals, unless it is I who pass before him. No, once and for all, I do not move. He passes motionless, but there will not be much on the subject of Malone, for whom there is nothing further to be hoped. Personally, I do not intend to be bored. It was while watching him pass that I wondered if we cast a shadow. Impossible to say. He passes close by me, a few feet away, slowly, always in the same direction. I am almost sure it is he. The brimless hat seems to me conclusive. With his 2 hands, he props up his jaw. He passes without a word. Perhaps he does not see me. One of these days, I'll challenge him. I'll say, I don't know. I'll say something. I'll think of something when the time comes. There are no days here, but I use the expression. I see him from the waist up. He stops at the waist, as far as I'm concerned. The trunk is erect, but I do not know whether he is on his feet or on his knees. He might also be seated. I see him in profile. Sometimes I wonder if it is not Malloy. Perhaps it is Malloy wearing Malone's hat, but it is more reasonable to suppose it is a Malone wearing his own hat. I will stop there, but you can imagine. It goes on and on.
Yeah, oh my gosh. That's an incredible passage. I don't know. Yeah. I have a very short quote.
Go for it.
Here. The quote is, One starts things moving without a thought of how to stop them, in order to speak. One starts speaking as if it were possible to stop at will. It is better so. The search for the means to put an end to things, an end to speech, is what enables the discourse to continue. No, I must not try to think, simply utter. And there's another passage that elaborates on the ideas in this one a little bit more that I was having trouble finding in my notes, but in this passage and the other passage I'm trying to think of, he talks about how hard he talks about wanting to speak without the speaking having any cognitive content, if you forgive me for the term, and how hard that is, because as soon as you speak, you're going to be misunderstood by someone, and then that someone's going to ask you for clarification, and then that forces you to speak more.
Yeah.
And in order to clarify, you need to think through what you were meant, and it talks about the difficulty of talking without any content to whatever you're saying. You know?
I think that's so telling. I think that's so central to what Beckett is trying to do here.
So this passage that I'd like to read is one of the only moments where I feel like we do have like an arresting literary image. I think one of them was the one that you read, you know, also with sort of quasi-comic elements. This one as well. So there's this weird, to the extent that this book has a plot, you could call it a subplot, where he talks about how his head is stuck in like a vase that a woman owns, and she like takes care of him or something.
Right.
And
but I think he's quite unreliable in this part of the story. But yeah.
yeah. But there's one image in this passage that I love, and he talks about sort of tricking this woman and hiding, you know, lowering down.
Yeah.
And so that's what this passage is talking about. So this is the passage. Often at dawn, having left it out all night, I bring it in to mock the woman and lead her astray. For in the morning, when she has rattled up her shutters, the first look of her eyes, still moist with fornication, is for the jar. And when she does not see my head, she comes running to find out what has happened. For either I have escaped during the night, or else I have shrunk again. But just before she reaches me, I up with it like a jack-in-the-box, the old eyes glaring up at her. I love the image of the jack-in-the-box.
Yeah.
Again, like, these are some of the passages where you do find something to hook onto, you know? But again, they are so very fleeting.
Yeah.
And as the book continues, especially in the last half to 1/3, the sentences become more and more longer and longer and more just like unhinged. Basically, is the word that I used. And that's where it's especially difficult to read, because the sentences just become phrase after phrase after phrase separated by commas, you know? And I had a long example of it bolded out. I'm not sure I'm going to read this whole thing. But like, so this is from page 378 to 379 in my edition. And this is all one sentence. This is, you can see it. All that's bolded out right there, one sentence.
Yeah.
And
it looks like more than 2 paragraphs. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is at a certain point when I was reading it, I was thinking an interesting challenge would be to just have us both open to a random page in the second half and just read from it.
I think we should do that.
Okay, we should do that?
I think we should do that, yeah.
Let's do that then.
I think it's a very worthwhile exercise because it's so unrelenting, like you said. That's the good word. It's just such an unrelenting book, and it's consistent. It is a consistency to this writing, which is just extremely impressive. Yeah.
I don't know how he wrote it, but do you want to go first? Since I just read something.
Sure. So let's pick something here. Oh my gosh, the part about worm. Oh my lord.
Worm and Mahood.
Okay. This might be related to the piece you were reading about the woman. Let's see though. No, there is no getting away from it. This woman is losing faith in me, and she is trying to put off the moment when she must finally confess her error by coming every few minutes to see if I'm still more or less imaginable in situ. Similarly, the belief in God, in all modesty, it must be said, is sometimes lost following a period of intensified zeal and observance, it appears. Here I pause to make a distinction. I must still be thinking. That the jar is really standing where they say, all right, I wouldn't dream of denying it. After all, it's none of my business. Though its presence at such a place, about the reality of which I do not propose to quibble either, does not strike me as very credible. No, I merely doubt that I am in it. It is easier to raise a shrine then bring the deity down to hunt it. But what's all this confusion now? That's what comes of distinctions. No matter. She loves me. I've always felt it. She needs me. Her chop house, her husband, her children, if she has any, are not enough. There is in her a void that I alone can fill. It is not surprising then she would have visions. Oh, we could stop there. But
no, I mean, honestly, that passage was really arresting. I can see how the audiobook would help, but it must have been a really difficult audiobook to record.
Oh, that too. I was thinking to listen to it. Yeah, it's also to record, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure really hard.
All right, let me see. I'll just try to do this randomly. I need a random number generator, but anyway. All right, so I opened to pretty close to the end of the book.
Yeah.
I'll just start mid-sentence at the top of the page. Here it goes. That gives me the right to be done with speech, done with listening, done with hearing, without my knowing it. I'm listening already. I'm going silent. The next time I won't go to such pains. I'll tell one of Mahood's old tales. No matter which. They are all alike. They won't tire me. I won't bother any more about me. I'll know that no matter what I say, the result is the same. That I'll never be silent, never at peace. Unless I try once more, just once more, one last time, to say what has been said about me. I feel it's about me. Perhaps that's the mistake I make. Perhaps that's my sin. So as to have nothing more to say, nothing more to hear, till I die. It's coming back. I'm glad. I'll try again. Quick, before it goes again. Try what? I don't know. To continue. Now there is no one left. That's a good continuation. No one left. It's embarrassing. If I had a memory, it might tell me that this is the sign of the end. This having no one left, no one to talk to, no one to talk to you, so that you have to say, it's I who am doing this to me. I who am talking to me about me. So anyway, yeah. So,
amazing.
No, they did, the qualities do come out in it when you read it aloud, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Both in what you just read and what I read. But it's hard to appreciate when you're in the thick of it, you know?
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but again, possibly the point. I don't know.
I'll give you my philosophy of the book. Okay? This is my overarching theory of the book. It's like a vision of like all of humanity and all of that discourse as like being so like absurd, you know? It's like this, again, it's reduced ad absurdum, like everything is just talk and signifying nothing.
Which he says at one point, actually. And you notice that he says signifying nothing.
Yeah,
I noted that.
Reference, yeah. And then it has this effect on us, I think, as a reader, me, like it's effect of like exhausting this energy. Like the theory of the book seems to be there's this internal formless energy in like the brain, let's say, or the human consciousness to put names to things, to label things, to reason about things, to predict things. And it's constantly, incessantly moving. And that's how we navigate the world. That's how we label things. That's how we think about the world. And then you just remove the world. You subtract the world, and you're just left with this energy, with this restless language that can't stop. Which I think in Beckett's philosophy seems to be like something integral to the human experience, like operating under the surface. And then I think reading the book has this effect of by shining a light on that, like sort of exhausting that energy to some extent, like loosening that a little bit. And like when you I imagine like turn off the audiobook or whatever, like close the book, there's like capacity, there's like more of a capacity for like the after image of that, which is more of a silence, you know, like a calming of that incessant labeling, thinking, reasoning part of the mind.
Yeah. And that's probably why the end of the book feels so I want to say cathartic. That doesn't feel like quite the right word, but the end of the book, and I also don't want to say relief, but it almost is a relief to finish it. But the last passage in the book, I read the opening passage, I have to read the ending passage. The ending of it is so such a release. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. I do love the way that this book ends.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not quite sure where to start in reading the last passage, because again, it's like a sentence that has gone on for like 2 pages or whatever. Okay, here. I can't go on. You must go on. I'll go on. You must say words, as long as there are any, until they find me, until they say me. Strange pain, strange sin. You must go on. Perhaps it's done already. Perhaps they have said me already. Perhaps they have carried me to the threshold of my story, before the door that opens on my story. That would surprise me. If it opens, it will be I. It will be the silence. Where I am, I don't know. I'll never know. In the silence, you don't know. You must go on. I can't go on. I'll go on. Yeah. And something when I was rereading this passage earlier today, I like when he says somewhere in here, it is done, which I believe is one of the last things that Jesus Christ says in one of the Gospels. So I found that really powerful. But it's a really powerful closing passage.
Yeah.
And it is this really, and it's released too because I think it's very poetically beautiful.
Yeah.
And again, so much of the unrelenting language we've gotten is not poetically beautiful in the way that we expect beautiful language to be. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and it implies that it's not really over. You know, it's all go on. It's very powerful.
Yeah, it just ends mid-thought. It's like the end of The Sopranos. I don't know if you've watched The Sopranos, but famously, The Sopranos ends like abruptly in the middle of a shot, right?
Yeah.
The Tony Soprano and his family are going to have dinner, and you see some other people at the diner who look suspicious, and you're like, oh, is he about to be like assassinated or whatever? But then it just cuts to black, and that's the end of the show. It's a little bit like the end of like that, you know. It's just like, you know, this is gonna keep going on forever, so I might as well just cut it off here. You know? Something else I really wanted to do. I said I didn't have any plans. I did sort of have plans, but a lot of, especially the writing in the last third of the book, reminded me of some of Samuel Beckett's poems. So Samuel Beckett is not super widely appreciated as a poet. I mean, with good reason. He didn't write a lot of poems. I wouldn't call him a major poet, up there with the other great poets of the 20th century. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I really love some of his poems. And the writing in a lot of The Unnamable read kind of like some of Samuel Beckett's poetry, except that not cut into verses, right? So I'm going to read a short poem. I have a short poem. The poem is called Something There. All right, and here it is. Something there. Where? Out there. Out where? Outside. What? The head. What else? Something there. Somewhere. Outside. The head. At the faint sound so brief. It is gone, and the whole globe, not yet bare. The eye opens wide, wide, till in the end nothing more shutters it again. So the odd time out there, somewhere out there, like as if, something not life, necessarily. You know, so
very similar,
yeah, except that here it's cut into verses, which makes it much more, and it's also very short, which makes it much more digestible. You know, and it is interesting, just in terms of Beckett's oeuvre, how his fiction in many ways feels kind of maximalist. Well, in some ways maximalist, in some ways minimalist, right? Minimalist in the sense that, again, not much action, not much character, but maximalist in that it's like, I'm going to throw all this language at you, you know, and it's going to be unrelenting. And yet his poetry is so minimalist, right? Like this poem on the page looks pathetic, you know, it's a skinny little lines, short lines. Some of the lines are one word, you know, it's a short poem. So there's this cleavage in his work between maximalist, like I'm going to throw all the words at you, and like spare poetry. And I feel like the plays are somewhere in the middle of it too. So,
also, I feel like there's some sort of like background, foreground inversion where he takes like almost like the connecting thoughts, like the the pauses of language, like the intermediate sort of, you know, questioning, undermining types of like thought processes, and he like just makes that the content. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It's like
the throat clearing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the throat clearing is the content now. That's right. And so I was thinking also for like another metaphor analogy, like it reminds me of a literary equivalent of like Merzbow. So Merzbow is a Japanese noise artist that I actually enjoy quite a bit.
Okay.
But it's like this background foreground inversion where you take like the noise, the background noise, the things that you don't call the music, and you make that the music. You know?
Yeah. I hadn't thought to compare this to like noise music. I had a friend who read not this book, but How It Is, one of Beckett's other novels, which is my favorite of his novels. And he actually kind of compared the way that language is used in How It Is to like atonal music, specifically 12-tone music, like Schoenberg.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
You know, again, because like with the tonal system, you expect a tonal center with a key signature and all this, and the music to at least hover around that key signature for a time, right? And that kind of helps you feel grounded and at home. But the 12-tone method doesn't give any of the 12 tones any precedence, and so we feel very sort of disoriented and lost. And I think it may apply here. It applies even more to How It Is, and I would have to grab How It Is and show you how it's written, because it's also written in a very particular kind of style. But that could be another kind of musical comparison.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it's a very apt comparison.
Yeah.
There's no grounding here. There's no center here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I was thinking to wrap up here. This is just a general comment about the trilogy. We both had this experience where the first time we read it, we both loved Malloy. We didn't necessarily make heads or tails of Malone Dies and The Unnamable. We both read it the second time here. We both still loved Malloy, and we both fell in love with Malone Dies, and we're still a little not sure of The Unnamable. What I wonder is if we both read it a third time, maybe that will make The Unnamable click.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I think I'd be a different person.
Yeah.
When that clicks.
Yeah.
But I'm amazed at the accomplishment. I'm amazed at the art. Like when I read this or audiobook or whatever the case may be, like I couldn't imagine putting this on paper. Like, how does his brain,
And he did it twice, because he wrote it in French and then he translated it into English himself. I mean,
I had another analogy, which is not such a great analogy. Maybe there's a way to make it sharper, but it felt like a broken large language model. Like these modern large language models. They're just language machines. They just can sprout language, and it's like if it's almost like one that's not really functioning or something. I don't really know how to make that metaphor work exactly, but it felt like so inhuman in a way, but also an incredible accomplishment. How I couldn't imagine how he can do that.
Yeah, I know. Well, anyway, this was cool.
Yeah,
good discussion.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I guess we're done. So if you're watching, you have thoughts, questions, anything else about The Unnamable, leave them in the comments. But
thank you for joining us on this read-along. If you watched it.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Well,